Over 700 years ago, the most powerful army in the world, and probably the richest, just vanished. I mean, overnight. They were rounded up, they were tortured, their order was totally destroyed. But here's the kicker. When their enemies finally broke into their vaults, the one thing they were after, this legendary, massive treasure, was gone. This is one of the coldest cold cases in history. And tonight, we're reopening the file.
So, our story begins at the scene of the crime. The date, Friday, October 13th, 1307. You know, a date so infamous we're still superstitious about it. But believe me, this was no accident. This was a perfectly coordinated, nationwide ambush.
Just try to picture this. As the sun comes up all across France, royal officials in every single town, every province, are unsealing these secret orders at the exact same time. They're from King Philip IV, and the command inside is just, it's breathtaking. Arrest every single Knight Templar in the entire kingdom. All at once. There was no way for anyone to warn anybody else.
I mean, the speed of this thing was just unreal. Before most people have even had breakfast, hundreds of the most feared warriors in all of Europe are being dragged out of their beds. And get this, even their leader, the Grand Master Jacques de Molay, is captured in Paris. The whole operation was basically flawless. Almost. Because here's the twist. When the king's men finally stormed the Paris Temple, which was the nerve center of this whole operation, the place they expected to find mountains of gold, they get to the vaults, and they're pretty much empty. The gold, the silver, the priceless holy relics, the secret documents, gone. All of it. Which leaves us with this massive 700-year-old question. Where did it all go?
To really wrap your head around what went missing, you first have to understand who the Templars actually were. Because they weren't just knights in armor. No. They were basically the world's first multinational corporation, and they were richer than you can possibly imagine.
And what's so wild is this contrast right here. On paper, they took a vow of poverty. Their symbol was literally two knights sharing one horse to show how humble they were. But the reality? The reality was they were the central bank for all of Europe. They pretty much invented the idea of credit, and they were lending money to kings.
Just let this number sink in for a second. 9,000. That's how many properties they owned. We're talking castles, farms, vineyards, you name it, all across Europe and the Middle East. This wasn't just some religious order. It was an empire. And an empire that answered only to the Pope, not to any king. And well, that made them a huge threat.
So how in the world did they pull off this magic trick? Well, the evidence suggests they got a warning. Someone on the inside must have tipped them off. Because it wasn't just the treasure from the vaults that disappeared. Right before the raids, the entire Templar fleet, 18 huge ships, just sailed out of the port of La Rochelle and vanished, taking a very secret, very valuable cargo with them. All right, so that fleet is our first big clue, right? I mean, ships don't just sail off into nowhere, and the trail they may have left has led people down this incredible rabbit hole of theories, pointing to some of the most mysterious places you could possibly think of. Okay, so lead number 1 takes us all the way across the Atlantic to this little island in Canada called Oak Island. And there, people found what they called the Money Pit. It's this deep, man-made shaft, but get this, it's booby-trapped. It has these brilliantly engineered flood tunnels connected to the ocean, designed to fill the whole thing with seawater if you dig too far. We're talking engineering that's centuries ahead of its time. Some people are convinced it was built by explorers with Templar ties who got to America way before Columbus. Now, lead number 2 is in Scotland, at a place that's like a history book written in stone, Rosslyn Chapel. It was built by a family known to protect Templars who are on the run, and the carvings on the walls are just bizarre. You can see what looks exactly like corn and aloe vera, plants from the Americas, carved decades before Columbus's famous voyage. How is that possible? Oh, and modern radar scans show there are mysterious hidden chambers under the chapel floor.
Our third lead is a little less famous, but honestly, it might be the most fascinating. It's an old manor house in England called Sinai Park House. For centuries, locals have told stories about secret tunnels and hidden vaults beneath it. And here's why it makes sense. The crackdown on the Templars in England was way slower than in France. It gave them more time to carefully hide their assets far away from the big cities. And the best part? The site's almost totally unexcavated. A secret could be sleeping right under the ground.
So for hundreds of years, these were all just amazing theories. But then, in 2001, a researcher digging through the Vatican's secret archives found something that changed absolutely everything.
It finally gave us the one piece of the puzzle that was missing: motive.
It's called the Chinon parchment. And can you believe this? For 700 years, it was lost, just misfiled in the archives. When a historian finally stumbled upon it, she uncovered a truth that completely rewrites the entire story of the Knights Templar.
And here's the bombshell. The parchment proves that a year after the arrests, the Pope himself secretly investigated the Templar leaders and found them innocent. He officially cleared them of all charges of heresy. This whole thing was a frame-up, cooked up by a king who was massively in debt to the Templars and just wanted their cash.
I mean, this changes everything. It means this wasn't a trial, it was a heist. A state-sponsored robbery. The Templars weren't guilty heretics hiding in shame. They were innocent men who were being targeted by a greedy king, and they had every right, every reason in the world to hide their fortune from him. This document gives them the ultimate motive for pulling off that great escape.
So, after all this searching, where does that leave us? Well, the physical treasure has never been found. That much is true. But the evidence that they planned a careful, deliberate concealment? It's pretty overwhelming.
So let's just do a quick rundown of the case file. At Oak Island, you've got this incredible engineering that nobody can explain. At Roslyn Chapel, you have stone carvings that seem to hold secret knowledge. Sinai Park House is this huge, uninvestigated lead. And then there's Portugal, where the Templars didn't even really hide. They just changed their name and kept right on going. That's a confirmed survival of the order.
But maybe all this focus on gold and jewels is distracting us from their real treasure. The Templar Order was officially destroyed, but their revolutionary ideas about finance, well, those survived. Things like letters of credit and international banking, they basically invented that. They created the blueprint for the global financial system we all use today. Their real legacy is hidden in plain sight.
So, while the search for all that gold and silver goes on, it does make you wonder, what if the Templars' greatest treasure wasn't something you could lock away in a vault? What if it was actually a story of mystery and injustice and survival that's so powerful it's captivated us for 7 centuries and has outlasted the very empires that tried to wipe it from history?